What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more soft sell. And I wanted to start by giving a shout out to all the folks who've been following this deep dive, as well as to Mr. Solo and Kim, both of whom have provided the raw goods for the soft sell journey. And Kim specifically, who mentioned to me that Soft Cell has announced through their newsletter, which I hadn't seen until Kim brought this to my attention, that they're coming out with another proper album next year, and that 2026 is going to be a year of soft sell, which sounds very exciting to me. The new album is called Danceteria or Danceteria, which is apparently written about Dave and Marc's adventures or experiences in both London and New York and the club scene in the very early 80s. So part of their own lives, but seen through a prism of 45 years of temporal distance, which I'm very excited to hear. And in the newsletter, there were quotes from both Dave and Marc about the production, the recording of the vocals, the lyrical subject matter for the album, and it all sounds very exciting to me. I am very happy and looking forward to it, and any folks here who weren't aware, I would encourage you to check out the newsletter, and thank you once again to Kim for bringing that to my attention and forwarding the newsletter. But we're still going through Cruelty Without Beauty, and the next track is Last Chance. So yeah, I feel like this meaning of the phrase is very clear. Of course, what the last chance represents or in what context it occurs is of course not specified, but yeah, a last chance is a final opportunity to rectify, to accomplish, to facilitate, or to otherwise produce a result that is seen as probabilistic or the last in a series of such opportunities. So yeah, there's a finality to it, also in a sense of urgency maybe, or a sense that if the result in question is not accomplished, there may be consequences which are less than desirable. So let's see what it is in practice. This is Soft Cell from the Cruelty Without Beauty album 2002, and the track is Last Chance.
Virgin and light, one ray, an evening.
It's so good. I'm going to try to comment on all the sonic details as quickly as I can before they slip out of my head, and then we'll get to the lyrics, which in this case I feel like I followed pretty well. So, okay, there's obviously that electric bass, and there's a couple moments in the tune where it's almost like it's being plucked. Like, I forget the name of that, like, folk instrument where it has this, like, elastic quality. But yeah, there's, like, this pulsing elastic bass that is pervasive in the tune, but really stands out in a few moments. There's some great synth work. There's like a synth line which sounds a bit like an electronic flute. There's some synth touches which sound like chimes or like bells almost. There's some strings in there. There's also this what is see, it's already happening. There's an element that I'm losing here. But yes, there's a nice blend of different melodic layers, all of which sound electronic, but many of which have like real instrument analogs. Oh, it was that fluttering synth. There's like this fluttering synth, like it's not like the main melody, but it's sort of like in the background providing substance and a bit of like a light, airy texture to it. And that was featured in the beginning, but it kept coming back at some different times throughout the track. I really enjoyed all that. I enjoyed when it would go into the chorus, it would really kick up in intensity, seemingly like 2 levels, like once and then again to an even higher level. And when it had those sonic explosions, it had a really great configuration and power to it. So yeah, sonically, I absolutely love this one. Marc sounds great on the vocals, and he's sort of in his storytelling mode, which was giving me a lot of visuals. And it is funny to hear them in an album in 2002, talking about a narrative in which he and the person he's addressing, whom I'm assuming is male, even though he's describing them as having a very effeminate look. And I don't know who Carol White was or is that was the name, right? I'm assuming like a very fancy actress or something like that. But I love that, like, you think you look like Carol White, but you actually look like a lady of the night, which is to say, a streetwalker or someone who provides sexual favors, for pay. So it's like, in a way, he's kind of insulting them, but I think it's playful, and I think it's like, he's sort of doing the same with his own look, that like, I'm trying to look very debonair and sexy, like twirling a cigarette and, looking very like handsome and sexy, and yet, there's smoke in my eyes and I can't really see through it, and he knows that they're both past their prime. So again, an album in 2002, and he's talking about how 2 people at a nightclub are, not really the target audience or the target crowd in a nightclub. They're both, again, at this point, I'm guessing they're in their 40s. So, he's saying, like, we're both a bit past our prime. We both don't quite look as flash and as sexy as we might have 20 years ago. And I was even thinking, like, you could extrapolate that, and it's maybe talking about, Marc and Dave, that, like, look, a lot's happened since the period when, we became sort of famous and, made tracks that were, like, out on the radio and so on. But there's still an allure here. There's still, some magic happening here. Now, again, take it back to the narrative that I think is on offer. And I enjoy how he's, again, sort of insulting the look of the other person and, making fun of himself. But he's also saying, like, this is our last chance. Now, it sounds like a chance meeting. It's like, oh, we met over, what was it, like a vodka and lime, or was it like a whiskey and lemon, something like that? But it was like, a mixed drink, or, a very minimal kind of mixed drink. And he's referencing it in the past, but it's sort of like it's happening all in the moment. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe this is like they've met a few times, they've kept talking, and then, they're at the point where it's kind of make or break. Like, it's either going to just sort of like peter out and not become anything, or they're going to come home with him and they will find love and make love, and it'll be, something that maybe can grow and flourish and become something significant. But the way I was reading it on a first listen, it's like a, like a one night stand, or like a first night maybe in something that could be more. But yeah, so they're meeting, they're talking, they're trying to look good, but they both know, like, it's not quite what it used to be. I love the line where you're saying, like, I can still look good in the right light. So he's saying, like, if you see me, with the lights bright and garish, maybe I don't look as good as I used to. Maybe I'm not as sexy as I used to be. But still, if the light catches me at just the right angle, I can still look pretty good. And despite him saying, oh, you look like a lady of the night, I think he's still saying, there's an allure there, and he's certainly interested. And he's the one making the entreaty, will you come home with me tonight? So, yeah, I don't quite know why it's last chance, although he also talks about a last dance, so it's like, the bar is closing, and if we don't make this connection further before we're told to go out or whatever, maybe we just go home our separate ways, nothing comes of this, and that's it. We've missed our last chance. So I think, again, maybe it's about the environment where, it's almost closing time, or it's last dance, last song on the dance floor, and again, he's saying, like, do you want to make more of this? Can we do this? Or is this something that's just going to be a missed opportunity? So, yeah, it's a cool tune. I enjoyed, there was a very visual element as I was listening. Marc sounds very good on the vocals. I enjoy all those different layers of the sonics, especially that powerful, explosive chorus. So, yeah, a top tune. Absolutely enjoy this one. Let me know what you think. Again, let's get excited for the Soft Cell album that's coming next year. Look, I was going to pet her, but she's like, her whiskers are flickering and she looks like she's dreaming, so I'll let her do that. But yes, looking forward to more in the Soft Cell journey between now and then, of course, but obviously I'm excited for the new album when it comes out next year. So let's look forward to the year of Soft Cell in 2026 and keep journeying with them in the meantime. Thank you again to, as I said, Solo for starting this off and giving me access to some of the earlier albums, as well as Kim, who's given me access to all manner of material, bonus and otherwise. So, yeah, we'll keep going with the voyage. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.